if you subscribe to the larger idea that business can be a force for good, that business can change things in incredible ways, then you realize that there's an opportunity there. And I think that the way these types of huge, complex, dynamic, challenging problems are going to be solved is by business. And business can be a bad thing, but it can also be a really good thing.
Welcome to Uprising. Each episode looks inside what it takes to lead the most dynamic and successful cultural movements. Some of them in the business world, some in the social realm, some in politics, and some in between, to see why people start uprisings. What gives those initiatives momentum and keeps them going? And most important, what lessons can you learn from these movements and how to apply them to your business and even personal life? Let's explore the secret to sparking movements that move people into action.
Passionate ideas.
Controversial ideas.
Uprising ideas.
The power is now in the hands of anyone.
To start a cultural movement.
Today's Uprising Pod is brought to you by warbyparker.com. Get a free 5-day home try-on at www.warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. 5 pairs, 5 days, 100% free.
Hi, this is Scott Goodson, and welcome to Uprising, the podcast that talks about movements, both social movements, movements for good, and companies and brands that are fighting to change the world. And we look at individuals who have created movements and organizations that stand for positive force for good, driving positive change. And at Strawberry Frog, this company that I've been working with for 20 years, that's what we focus on. We work with entrepreneurs, organizations, and brands to not be a purpose-based brand, because purpose-based brands tend to be somewhat of a theoretical idea, but a movement which is about activating purpose and putting it in the marketplace to actually change the world, make the world a better place. And we really need that today. So it's the opposite of theory. It's the opposite of apathy. It's about action. A movement is a force for good. It's a fight every day. It's a push up the hill. It's passion, conviction, creativity, motivation, trust. It's a fight. I know I said that already, but I'm just going to repeat it again. It's a fight every day. It's taking a stand for something. That's what a movement is about. And when you do that, people join you. They're part of it. Their passions are ignited and things start to happen. Momentum starts to build. Today, we want to start by looking at our feet. That's right. Take a look at your feet for a moment. What shoes are you wearing? Are they sneakers, loafers, pumps, or perhaps slippers? But I want you to ask yourself, why did you choose that particular shoe? What makes it better than other brands or other types of shoes? How does it feel when you walk in them? How does the brand that is on that shoe make you feel? Last year, while I was guest lecturing at Harvard Business School, I was introduced to Allbirds, a shoe brand, by Pauline Brown, my friend, and also a professor at the Harvard Business School. And if you happen to be walking around Harvard University, you would have seen these gray woolen shoes. No brand anywhere. They look like slippers. When you wear them, people kind of think you're wearing slippers. Or now, if you're in Silicon Valley, you're most likely wearing Allbirds. They're a sneaker, a shoe, completely made out of wool, and they're sweeping the tech capital, sparking a shoe movement. And in its wake are the classic running shoe brands that are falling by the wayside. So today on the Uprising Pod, we have the Allbirds co-founder, Tim Brown, to talk about what goes into revitalizing the stagnant shoe industry and, in effect, bettering the world with this new, miraculous, magic shoe brand. Tim, thank you for joining us on the Uprising podcast.
Thank you for having me. Great to chat.
Let's start with a question that I like to ask my guests. So what do you stand for and what do you stand against?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I think as a person, I think I stand for loyalty, for honesty, for doing the right thing, for working hard, and I probably stand against the opposites of those things, I think, for the most part, and hopefully try and bring those personal qualities into, that I value in sort of my personal life, into the business that we're building here at Allbirds. It's interesting. We talk a lot about the type of culture we want to build in the business, and it kind of bugs me, I think, a lot when people refer to sort of businesses as families. I think that's wrong. Like, your family is your family, and it's unconditional love. Your business is about a high performance team, and it can be difficult at times. But I think ultimately business is personal too, and you spend a lot of time in a business, and you need to do that in the right way, and you need to surround yourself with people that you respect and really, really like. And I think we've tried to do that here at Allbirds, and I'd like to think that I'm the same person off the field as I am on, for the most part.
Speaking of Allbirds, how are you revolutionizing the shoe industry?
I think we've come into an old-fashioned, very, very crowded, saturated category, and we tried to build a brand that is about sustainable material innovation. It's about doing things differently with a simpler business model and a simpler product offering, and a really thoughtful execution of that business model that is designed to be a direct-to-consumer, deeply customer sort of focused or obsessed. I think that flies counter to a large part of the way that the footwear industry currently operates.
You're also revolutionizing the shoe industry by using wool to create your product instead of synthetics like other companies. What are the benefits of using wool?
Wool it's one of those intuitively, maybe obvious things that wool should be used in footwear. It's sort of this miracle fiber that wicks away moisture, regulates temperature, and is incredibly soft and comfortable, and you want it against your skin. You want it in shoes, and so we were able to find a way to do that with a proprietary textile that took a number of years to create. We co-manufacture with a really the world's best wool mill just outside of Milan in Italy, and we've got something we think is quite special. And again, sometimes the revolutionary ideas are sometimes the most obvious ones, and we like to think that this is a new product category that probably should have been around for a lot longer than it has been.
So I'm sure a lot of sheep who are perhaps too hot in New Zealand are looking forward to getting shaved and getting rid of some of their wool. It's obviously natural and renewable resource. That's great for the environment. But why should other companies follow you and use this natural material?
I think we're all in this together. At the end of the day, we're making stuff, broadly speaking, that doesn't have a great deal of empathy for the environment, and that has to change. And that's not just an Allbirds problem or a millennial problem. That's the problem, kind of, without being too funny about it, of our generation. And I think we have to work out how to make stuff in a better way. And that is a very lofty thing to say. But I love the idea that it's a lofty goal for Allbirds to be part of that conversation and to be part of the solution. Do we have all the answers? Absolutely not. But we're trying intently and deeply, and we're doing it just in shoes at the moment, with a very, very narrow focus in a category that, quite frankly, I think needs a little bit of help. But, I don't think that it's just us doing it. I think there's lots of people that have this type of empathy for the world, and more need to develop it. I don't think of it really as something that we should be proud of. I think it should be a non-negotiable for anyone that's making anything anywhere in the world today. That's how we should be behaving. How can we make products more efficiently and more thoughtfully with an empathy for the environment? And that should not mean, and this is a very, very key point, that should not mean that we settle for inferior products. It should mean that we make the best products we possibly can, but we should make them in more sustainable ways. And that's really the journey we're on in a nutshell.
I think that's a great way to look at business. I'd also like to say that your brand fits really nicely into the sustainability movement that's underway. It takes 60% less energy to make Allbirds than other shoe brands. Your packaging uses 40% fewer materials. Why is sustainability such an important cause to you personally and for your movement?
I think it's about efficiency. It's the right thing to do, and I think it's a very interesting challenge to solve. If you ask 100 people on the street, do they care about sustainability, they'll say yes, particularly in San Francisco. 99 out of 100 will say yes. And then they go to buy stuff, and if you audit your day-to-day behavior, sustainability hasn't, I guarantee it has barely entered into your consumer consciousness at the point of checkout. You've never used it as a way to evaluate a purchase decision for the most part. And I think we have to change that. And the way that we change it is to take sustainability out of the conversation, to just make great products and to find better ways to make them. And there is no excuse that we can't put a man on the moon and do all this amazing, things that we're doing, and that we can't find, better ways to make coffee cups and to make shoes and apparel and fashion and all the different things that we use and consume on a daily basis.
It seems like you're describing a perfect world where all products are made and sold to benefit the environment. But we don't live in the perfect world, of course. In fact, global warming is harming the natural resources you use, and the current administration here in the United States is blatantly ignoring the issue of climate change completely. What does this mean for your business, and how do you align with sort of the times we're living in and those who oppose current administration's stance on climate change? How do you connect with that?
Is this a larger problem that the world needs to focus on? Yes, and I'm quite sure that the political swings and roundabouts will bring that back to reality. It's not something that we can ignore. And does it place short-term pressure on our business? No, I don't think it does. What I think we've found in the early days of sort of beginning Allbirds is that there is this latent desire, for brands to sort of behave in a better way and to be more thoughtful about the materials that they use and the way that they use them. We would like to think that we are, one of those options. And do we have all the answers? No. And I said this earlier, no, we don't. We've got a long way to go, but we're certainly trying very, very hard.
I love this idea that brands should be behaving in better ways. I personally believe that's in the company's best interest to improve the lot of its consumers, because if they live longer in a healthier environment, they buy more stuff, and that's good for the companies. In addition to creating economic opportunities and jobs, it also makes the world a better place. For example, your company partnered with Souls for Souls, which gives shoes and clothing to impoverished people around the world. Part of movement marketing that we believe in here at Strawberry Frog involves companies getting behind big ideas that make the world a better place. Sometimes that means involving yourself in CSR and charities, but more often than not, it's pulling CSR into the center of your branding and making it your point of difference. Actually making the world a better place, actually doing things. Can you talk a bit about how you are working in order to better the world and what kind of charities, organizations you are working with?
I think you've got to be really important that this stuff is sort of meaningful and not surface. But if you subscribe to the larger idea that business can be a force for good, that business can change things in incredible ways, you realize that there's an opportunity there. And I think that we've registered as a B Corp from the beginning, where we've actually changed the governance structure of our commercial entity to point towards the environment as one of our stakeholders in the business, that we're for profit, but we're also for the environment. And that's an important factor, literally in the legal way that we've been born as an entity. The way these types of huge, complex, dynamic, challenging problems are going to be solved is by business. And business can be a bad thing, but it can also be a really good thing. And we would like to think that we can be a profitable enterprise, but also something that stands for something more. And, with that type of comes pressure and expectation, but it's the thing that I think gets myself and my co-founder Joey out of bed in the morning, the idea that we have the potential to do something more and something meaningful than just sell shoes.
For you, the listeners of Scott Goodson's Uprising pod, Warby Parker is offering a free 5-day home try-on to give you the opportunity to check out their glasses. To get your home try-on today, go to warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. Again, that's warbyparkertrial.com/uprising for your free 5-day home try-on.
Since Allbirds does stand for something bigger, how do those values affect the company itself?
It gets tested all the time. We recently had a conversation internally where we had an internal debate to triple effectively the cost of a very minor component within our shoes to make them in a more thoughtful way. And it was an interesting challenge because on the surface, there's zero performance difference between the completely synthetic component and the new sort of post-consumer, more thoughtful solution, but there's a 3 times cost differential. And so unless your business is sort of designed, or the values and the things that really are meaningful to you are deeply ingrained in your business and the DNA of your business, you never ever make that decision. But we made very, very quickly with our executive team, we huddled up and we decided to pay 3 times more for a component that no one will know about because it's the right thing to do. With the belief that whenever we can create a like-for-like component of comparable quality and one's more thoughtfully produced, we pick that one every time. And it just so happens we have room within our business model and our margins to do that. And it's one of those little moments in a very, very small example of a moment where I feel like we're on the right track. The answer is sustainability. When you tackle something like that, what does that even mean? What is it? The answer is to do a whole lot of little things better than you were before, and try and improve incrementally towards this kind of perfect situation that most likely that you'll never reach. And that's certainly our mentality, and hopefully that's one little example of sort of how we're thinking about the world.
I'd like to switch gears for a little bit and talk about the amazing response your shoes are getting. I have a pair. I love them. I feel like I'm part of a movement. Every time I connect with someone who's wearing them, they kind of nod at me as if we're kind of a secret society. Everybody else thinks we're wearing slippers. So you've sparked this huge movement, especially in Silicon Valley, where everyone seems to be wearing your shoes. Who would you say you're targeting with this movement, and how are you engaging them? How are they being part of this movement?
I think, part of the thing I'm most proud about with the brand is it's been so widely adopted by different ages and people across America and across New Zealand in ways that we could never imagine. We didn't set out to target Silicon Valley in any sort of shape or form. I think people have maybe latched on to the extreme comfort that it provides, but I think they've also connected with the idea of a brand that's trying to innovate, that's trying to do things differently with a different type of business model, more thoughtful use of materials. And we've seen just this broad and wide adoption of the product, which is incredibly humbling and very, very exciting. And I think this universal idea of comfort, an informal aesthetic that doesn't have logos and allows you to wear the shoes in all sorts of different ways, to dress it up and dress it down and to wear it into the office, I think is all a pretty important part of it too. And been pretty pleasing to see how it's been adopted and by how many people.
So here at Strawberry Frog, we've been building movements for 20 years almost now. We started by helping to launch the smart car, which was a movement to reinvent the urban environment. We've been working with brands who've had ideas to change the world for the better. And we worked with IKEA, which was a furniture company, but believed that they were democratizing style on a global basis. And for a moment, I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit about some of the tools that you use in order to create and communicate your movement. Let's talk about logos. Movements often rely on symbols that people can immediately associate with and engage with, but your shoes don't have any flashy logos or designs or decorations. They seem to be naked. How does that work for you, and what kind of movement are you tapping into there?
It's interesting. Like when you look back to the emergence of sort of the early lifestyle brands, and I'm looking at sort of like the Calvin Kleins and the, Ralph Polos and the Tommy Hilfigers. They created this fantasy lifestyle that was aspirational, that was defined or marked by a logo. And I almost think of the evolution of brands as actually stepping away from this aesthetic treatment towards a more meaningful story where people actually engage with not just a mark or a sticker or a shape or a color or a logo, but something with much deeper. They engage with a story and a mission and a journey. And I'd like to think that that's what Allbirds is. It's not a logo stamped on a shoe. It's a way of thinking about the world without being too funny about it. And I think that's what brands are, really. And I think in this age of complete transparency, we talk a lot about the idea of keeping our toilets tidy, as if our consumers would come into our office and use our bathrooms. There's that level of transparency and openness in the way that you need to operate. So every decision is under the microscope, whether you like it or not, and you need to behave in the right way. And I think brands being born today are thinking like that. And I think that that's the evolution of brand, from logo mark to way of sort of living.
So relatively recently, you've opened up new stores in San Francisco and New York City that carry your very simple design. What kind of challenges did you face when you did this, and how is the movement, entering into the retail space?
Something that we're still working out. I think, we've always from the very beginning thought of ourselves as a direct-to-consumer brand. So not online only, although the large part of our business is online and we only have 2 stores, but serving the consumer, owning the full relationship with the consumer, and that was always going to involve retail, and it happened to us sooner than we thought, quite early on in our journey, and we've now just opened our second store that's going tremendously well on Prince Street in Soho in New York, and we're really excited about this idea of an online Allbirds experience, but then also an offline, in-person, physical experience, and how those two things could be both the same and then also different, and what are the opportunities of each of those different channels to serve the consumer with great products and a great experience. And we're in the early stages of thinking about it and understanding it, but I think that there's enormous potential for retail in the future of Allbirds.
Recently, Fast Company wrote an article describing how new generation consumers want brands to be more engaged in dealing with social issues, and also millennials themselves, I don't want to use the word millennials, but new consumers, I call them, would like to actively be part of changing the world for the better. And I want to go back to something you said a bit earlier. You said customers need to connect and engage with the brand, with their mission and their journey. What would you say Allbirds' mission and journey is?
The mission is very clearly to be about better shoes in a better way, although I think you can interchange shoes with probably more things, hopefully, at some point down the road. And the journey we're on is to very humbly work that out. And we've started with one natural material, the Rolls-Royce, we call it ZQ certified superfine New Zealand merino wool that we use in our 2 products on the market at the moment, or in our kids' shoes, Smallbirds, that we recently released. And then I think 2018 is a really exciting year for us. I think it's about new materials, new styles, and lots of exciting challenges as we grow and get better as a team and understand, truly how to make the products that we sell in better ways and make better products. So I think it's just the beginning for us, but I think we have a foundation of hopefully something that can be really meaningful for people.
Where can listeners of the Uprising Pod go to learn more about Allbirds?
Well, they can go to allbirds.com, and we sell our shoes currently in America and in New Zealand only online. And they can come to our 2 stores. At the moment we have 2. There will be more to come in the future, but one's in Hoteling Alley at the foot of the Transamerica in San Francisco, actually right underneath where I'm talking to you right now, underneath our headquarters. And then the other one has been open for a couple of months in Soho and in Prince Street in New York. And those are the options at the moment, and hopefully there'll be more to come soon.
Here's to Allbirds. This was super great. Thanks for joining us today.
No, just thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat. And if anyone's in San Francisco, come see us.
Thank you for joining us on the Uprising Pod today. If you want to find out more about our guests or learn how to create your own movement, please go to scottgoodsonsuprising.com. You can also download the show from iTunes or where other podcasts are curated. The Uprising Pod is executive produced by Frank Olito, produced by Nicola Keneally, and edited by Russell Costanzo. With special help from Melanie Boardman, Karin Drachenberg, Philippa Freeman, Brianna Campbell, Farshad Faroudi, Mark Bruzy, Mark Issam, and Jonathan Weeks. My name is Scott Goodson, and you've been listening to the Uprising Pod, where we can learn about movements and uprisings that are shaping our world, in business, in society, and in between. For more on cultural movements and movement marketing, be sure to pick up a copy of the best-selling book, Uprising: How to Build a Brand and Change the World by Sparking Cultural Movements, available on Amazon.com. If you have a moment, please do give us a favorable review on iTunes so that our movement moves up the ranks of the iTunes podcast list. And if you have ideas for future shows, please let us know by going to scottgoodsonsuprising.com. Thank you, and speak to you soon.